Today's a crappy day outside, so I'm just going to drive over to the indoor range and I'm going to try out the new triggers that I just installed on the P320 and the P320 X Carry, the Apex and the flat trigger from the X Carry that I swapped out. See how it goes, give a quick review, see what they feel like. All right, guys, and a quick review of both the flat advanced trigger from Apex and the SIG factory trigger. But first, let's make sure these weapons are cleared. All right, so in my shooting impression of both of these are that I personally believe that both of the triggers have improved the firearm from what they had from stock. The crazy portion of it is that the stock trigger that was on this gun is now on this gun. So starting off with the SIG flat trigger, okay? According to SIG, the SIG flat trigger is a direct replacement to the stock one. The trigger gives a lower position to increase leverage for a smoother, consistent pull whenever the shooter decides he wants to pull. And SIG P320s necessarily don't have that much of a take up. So this is a take up right here. So get your take up and your pull. All right, your reset. So in shooting this, to me, it didn't feel that the trigger was necessarily lighter, but there's a perceived feel because you go from a curved trigger right here to this flat trigger. So if anybody has a P320, I would suggest that you go ahead and buy one, because it is a pretty good replacement. Now, as for the Apex flat advanced trigger that I replaced, according to Apex, the flat trigger reduces the trigger weight in a regular 320 by about 35%. However, for the X series, it's only reduced by about 10%, with the overall travel being reduced by 15%. In firing this at the range, it did feel as if the trigger was somewhat lighter, but it's not that much of a difference to say, okay, go ahead, I should just buy one of these and add it to my X carry. Now, I haven't tried it on the 320, but compared to the original 320 trigger that was on here, I can say that that claim of reducing the trigger weight by about, or trigger pull by about 35% is somewhat accurate, but it's more probably a perceived weight loss for the trigger pull, because you're going from this angle right here to that angle right there. So that alone, being a flat trigger, will let you think that you're actually have a lighter trigger weight. Would I recommend it to any P320 owners? Yes, yeah, I would recommend it to any P320 owners. In the whole scheme of the thing is you're trying to do, you want to do advancements to make your firearm a better shooter, but also maintain the safety mechanisms that are still there. So this flat trigger I would recommend for P320, any P320. This trigger, yeah, I would say I would lightly recommend it, but also take into consideration that both of these triggers can be found roughly for the same price. I think I went on Brownells and I paid about $35 for this. And of course, this one was free because it came off of this gun, but MSRP is roughly about $50 for both of them. So for $50, you can take a trigger pull weight out of your regular P320 down by about 35%. I don't have a Lyman's test gauge to test my trigger weights. This is a new channel, and I will eventually buy one so I can compare triggers. So, all right. So finally, for any 320 owner out there, I would recommend both of these triggers, either the Apex flat trigger or the SIG factory flat trigger. Both of them run, like I said earlier, around $50. MSRP, you can find them cheaper online, but it does improve the feel of the trigger, and maybe this one might do a perceived lower, reducing the trigger pull, but it does feel like the trigger is somewhat lighter than the original trigger. But yeah, these are good triggers, and I would recommend it to anybody. Now, finally, I want to thank everybody or anybody out there that has watched any of our YouTube videos and subscribed to our channel. So I'm new to YouTube, and over the years of looking at YouTube, I didn't see a certain demographic of YouTubers that talked about firearms. One of them being African Americans or blacks, and the others being the normal everyday person that conceal carries or goes to the range every once in a while. You know, a lot of these guys out here they're tricking out their firearms. They're spending $2,000 on getting R-bar cuts and lightning cuts and doing all kind of crazy stuff to their firearms. But for the everyday shooter, you know, we don't have that luxury. So one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to show how you can do improvements to your firearms without breaking the bank. So for the improvements on both of these guns, I've only spent 50 bucks. I just redid the trigger on my Glock 21, and I probably spent in total maybe 80 bucks on lightening the trigger on there. And that's just shopping online and buying these parts. And we will do a review on that, because I'm also going to do the same thing to my Gen 4 Glock 19. Also, coming up, I have a Polymer 80 coming in, and we're going to start building that, or I'm going to start building that as soon as I get it. And I'll probably have it built out by the end of the month. But the main purpose of this channel is to focus on shooting on a budget. So you're not going out here breaking the bank. I'm not a tactical guy. I'm not a tactical shooter. I spent 20 years in the Army, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I kick in doors or I have to carry around a tricked out Glock. Majority of these guys that are the elite forces out there, they carry regular firearms. If you really look at it, they're pretty much off the shelf with minor advancements to them. So they're not shooting these. They're not going out on mission with these guns that got lightning cuts and completely Cerakoted and got $300 or $200 triggers on them. They're pretty much taking out there with them regular factory guns. And that's what I want to focus on, is for the everyday shooter, the guy that concealed carries, doing safe modifications to your firearms that won't, for one, void any warranties, or doesn't destroy the safety of your firearm. Because at the end of the day, these firearms have built-in safeties for them. They have built-in safeties for a reason. If you're going around tinkering and modifying them heavily, you could have the possibility of, maybe having an ND. And that's what you don't want to do. But there are simple modifications that you can make to firearms that will keep them safe, improve their shootability, and make for a great time at the range. So if you like the video, please click down below the like and subscribe, and I appreciate all of you for watching my video.